first, let me just say happy Peach Bowl Celebration Day to all who acknowledge it. Our sponsors are the AARP, the Evansville Teachers Association, the Evansville Vanderburgh Public Library, which is gracious enough to offer this space, the IBEW Local 16, the local NAACP, Valley Watch, United Neighborhoods of Evansville, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Plumbers, and Steam Fitters, Local 136, and of course, the League of Women Voters. We are going, since this is we typically do this, but especially it's the first one, we're going to let every legislator have a 5-minute opening to talk about their priorities, what they want to focus on, their general views of the session. After that, we will draw the questions at random. You will come up to this microphone. You will have 1 minute to ask your question, make a statement, and then every legislator will have 3 minutes to respond. I say this every time. I think it's probably obvious. These rules for times are important because we want to be respectful to everyone else. If you take up more than that minute, you're preventing us from getting more topics in. You're preventing the legislators from being able to talk. So it's disrespectful to everyone in the room. It's a respect thing. So we ask that you do that. Same with applause. We want you want to be able to offer your reaction to things, but when you clap and hoop and holler, again, it's less time for us to get to issues. So they have these red and green cards. That's a nice way of holding it up and saying, hey, I really love what you said, or I don't, in an efficient way so we can get through as much as we can. Okay, I'm told we're going to give you 1.5 minutes to ask your question. My apologies. The next session is slated for February 14th. There is tentatively one scheduled for March 14th as well. However, that is after the session is ended. So there are discussions of changing that date, moving it up, something to that effect. So we'll certainly announce that at the next one on February 14th, but also keep an eye out on social media. The League of Women Voters will certainly update you to the extent and if that date changes. A lot of these legislators like to get out of town and relax after the session is over, understandably. So what we'll do, without further ado, is start with the opening statements. We'll start here to my left and go down, and then we'll flip that for the questions and then just go back and forth. So not the same person isn't always leading off. So with that, Senator Toms, if you could start us off.
Thank you, Josh. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. And I'll just start off with some of the bills I'm working on. I guess this is, can you hear me all right? Maybe it's not close enough. The bills I've got, most of the bills I have were bills that were ideas that were brought to me. And so, except this first one here, I have a bill concerning the IURC, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And these utility bills are just outrageous. And I even, after session last year, I had a gentleman from Houston come up from Centerpoint. And we sat down, and Margie was with me, my wife, and we talked to him as ratepayers, not as a senator. And I begged him to consider doing something with the utility bills, something they could take off. Maybe that charge for gas they have. You know, there's an extra charge on that. Something. I'm asking for some relief. He's a nice guy. I've had him up here before. A few years ago he came up. What I was trying to do, and I'm still going to try to do, is I would like to meet the CEO. His name is Jason Wells. He looks like a nice fellow, young man. But I told this gentleman, I said, you know, I don't begrudge anybody how much money they make. But this gentleman's making $95,000 plus per month. And I don't know whether somebody that makes that kind of money can identify with a gentleman in my district that's living in a mobile home, has turned everything off, and still gets a $700 a month bill. So anyway, my bill here would, instead of being these board members, these 5 board members being appointed by the governor, my bill would stipulate that we would have these 5 members elected by the people. Thank you. And it would, we would phase them in. There would be 2 from the northern part of the district, and the way the LSA attorney drew it, he drew the boundaries really well. The northern part would have 2 members, the southern part would have 2 members, and the center part would have 1 member. And they are limited. They cannot have any dealings with utilities, any any funding from them. They can't campaign for their reelection and take money from the utilities. It would have to be in favor of our people. And so I don't know if the bill's going to get a hearing. The committee is going to. I wouldn't bet good money on it, but I'm going to try. We got to do something, folks. We have got to do something. So that's my bill on that one. And then I got one for the veterans benefits. We have organizations that have set up shop, and they provide services for our veterans, but they're not accredited by the VA. And when they do these things for our veterans, the veterans can get it from VA for free. These people charge an unbelievable amount of money for services that they provide for our veterans. I want that stopped, and it's going to be a bill that I'm going to hear Tuesday, and we'll see how this goes, but I'm looking out for the benefit of our veterans here. Then I have one that is Caden's Law, and this bill was one that came to me from an attorney asking me, it's about cases where children are in a home that's very disruptive homes, and sometimes these kids are taken out for a while but brought back in. This bill would provide for, add to the definition of domestic violence or family violence, behavior that's not necessarily physical, because some of these children are exposed to things that affect them mentally. And so this attorney who had an issue with this found that there wasn't anything to make a defense for the kids in these kind of situations. So I got this bill that was brought to my attention by her. The other one is a bill that I have. It's called, well, this here was a remittance bill that money that is, and this wasn't my bill initially, it was a senator that didn't have enough room to file it himself, but it would put a tax on money that people working here, illegal people, or people who are not citizens that are sending money overseas, there would be a simple tax applied to the amount of money that goes over. It's a very minimal amount of money, but anyway, it's something to recover the money that is leaving out of here. So that, we'll see what happens to that one. I don't know if it'll get hearing or not. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't my bill, but I did offer to file it on his behalf. And so, and I want to say something to Karen. Karen, on that Parkinson's, I don't see where you're at. Okay. I know that the House member, Hamilton, she's going to file that bill. She's got the bill filed, and I've asked to sponsor it. And that bill is to set up a registry for people with Parkinson's disease. And I met with Karen earlier this past year. She explained this issue, and it's very important. And I'm happy to be part of this process to get this accomplished. So, you know, and stay in touch with me too. Anything as it develops over in the House, I'll be watching too. But anything we need to do on the Senate side to move this through and get it passed, okay?
Thank you, Senator.
Okay.
Senator Becker?
Good morning. Thank you for being here. I want to start just by telling you there's handouts out on the table as well as applications for additional credits, application for credit against property taxes for the blind and disabled, and there's also one for senior citizens. They do have income limits, and it's like $60,000 for an individual, $70,000 for a joint, but you can get all the information out there or call your county auditor or go by there. Either way, because they have to be filed by January the 15th. So you don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to bring those to you so that people would at least have the information. And I wanted to talk, I have one bill, and it's on doxing. And doxing would be a new crime. I don't know if you followed any of what happened to a lot of the state senators. They were threatened. They had all kinds of threats against them because of their vote against redistricting. And so it just provides for penalties in the event that someone is doxed. And let me tell you a story about one of these state senators. And Senator Good said it was fine with him if I wanted to share his story. it's the worst of what happened. He was in the shower, taking a shower one evening, and his wife and son were in the basement pulling out Christmas decorations. Someone had called the police and said, "He's murdered his wife, you need to get over there." So what they did, they couldn't get anybody to answer the door. He was in the shower, his wife was in the basement, didn't hear it, so they knocked the door in and came in because they thought somebody had been murdered. And so they pointed the gun at him. He told him that, it's okay, nobody's been murdered, but that is horrible what they did. And so this would make it a crime if somebody is hurt as a result of that kind of thing. There was other situations where senators were threatened. There was one, Senator Lysing, they called her sheriff and said that there was a pipe bomb in her house. She knew there wasn't because she had been home all day. So she said, don't bother to come out. I know it's an empty threat. She did her own investigation and found out there was nothing there. Some people were sent pizzas. They were told they had ordered pizza. And then when they got to the door, they hadn't ordered pizza. I mean, it was just, some of it was silly, but others were very dangerous. So that's what the bill does if somebody is hurt or results in severe injuries. So, and the other thing, I have a utility bill that one of the best things in the bill would be to review trackers. How many of you know what a tracker is? I know you guys do that look at this all the time, but a tracker is an increase for utility companies without ever going before the IURC. It's something that they can go ahead and just get extra revenue for. So I've got a bill that does a few other things. It would require these big energy, what do they call them, where they're data centers, that they would have to pay for their own utilities and not spread them back to ratepayers. So that's, and again, the chairman of the utility company has never been real gung-ho on these issues, but I will tell you that the governor feels very strongly about some of these things as well. And he wants to put to rain on their parade, so to speak. So I think whether it's in this bill or another bill, we have an opportunity. And then I have a bill that really helps people with retirement. It would allow people that work in small businesses to take out payroll deductions for their own retirement. Because Social Security was never meant to be the only source of income for people in retirement, but for many people it is. And so for younger people and middle income and lower income, this would allow them to save some of their own retirement. So, and that is Senate Bill 24, if you want to take a look at that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Burton.
Good morning, everyone. My apologies in advance. I'm going to have to leave here shortly to deal with some political stuff, and I hate that I have to leave early. But I do want to take some time to focus on utilities because that is a high priority, and there is going to be some movement in the House related to that this year. House Bill 1002 is authored by Representative Elena Schockweiler, who is carrying the bill. This is going to be an initiative effort to change the way rates are calculated and how often utility companies are able to go to the IURC for increases. I'm still going through the bill. I am working incredibly close with her. She came into the House last year at the same time that I did, and we've built a pretty good relationship. In fact, I didn't know that she was going to be carrying this bill. But last year, I brought in my utility bills every month, and I showed her just how much we were paying per month and letting her clearly know that I was not paying the most by any means across the state. In Evansville, this was just what I'm paying in my home. And that has led to a lot of positive conversations, which I think is going to be, which has led to some good things being in the bill. As it relates to affordability, there are some things in this bill, and I'd like to think that it has to do with the relationship that I had that I built with her. But then not only that, she has Evansville and Centerpoint on her Google notifications, so that anytime that there is a news article, a post, any of that, TikTok, she was looking at all the things. So she has a great insight as to what we are experiencing down here. If you look at the bills that I filed, I have not filed a lot of utility-based bills because everything that I'm going to file is going to be an amendment, hopefully accepted into 1002. The top being a transparency piece, right? In August, we all were hit with a bill, and it was higher than what we expected. In August, that's when kids are going back to school. Parents are spending a lot more money at the start of the school year more than any other time. What my effort is trying to do is create a transparency portal on all the investor-owned utility sites so that if we know that we use 1,200 kilowatt hours in in September, then we'll know what that could be forecasted for in August. That way, that doesn't get to the meat of the issue, but it at least allows families to budget and properly plan. And where budget just came to my mind, in House Bill 1002, there is a line in there discussing budget billing. And I want to define that. That means a lot of different things to different territories. And from what I'm gathering, everyone around here does not like budget billing. So I want to make sure that the formula that's captured there really gets to the crux of the issue, making sure that our bills are not only affordable, but are as forecasted as possible. So that's all I have to say on utilities for now. I think there's some things that local government has in their control. One of instance, I'm throwing it out there because no one's acted on it yet. The street lights are owned and ran by Centerpoint. Those, if you drive in any neighborhood, specifically around my house, there's a lot of street lights out, and they've been out for a very long time. I think there's some things at play that should be considered, so I hope local government, city, county, somebody looks into that and seeing what we can do with that. ESG has came to the table and has been willing to be a partner in that, so I hope that that is something that city, county government can pursues, looks into, and takes seriously. Moving on. So going into this session, youth development, Department of Child Services, natural resources, education, data centers, Medicaid, workforce development, housing and child care, all issues that I am working very closely in, trying to get some things going. I was named ranking minority member on natural resources, and I just got confirmation yesterday that my bill will be heard Wednesday, and that has to do with the water outflowing out of data centers. That is not being collected, that's not being monitored, that's not anything. I'm considering this as an agency bill, so I'm working very closely with the Department of Natural Resources and the Office of Energy Development to make sure that the water coming out is not damaging to our homes, our bodies, our farms, our communities. So I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation to make sure that we're getting movement going on. And the last thing, with the last bit of second thing that I have, is House Bill 1001. That has everything to do with housing. I'm looking forward to that passing as well, simply because we need housing, and this bill will get us there closer. Thank you.
Representative Ledbetter.
Good job.
Good morning, everyone. I want to begin by sharing a story with you. Over the past few days, I've been posting information about House Bill 1276, which is a bill that works to end the energy monopoly on social media. In response, I faced criticism from several individuals who claimed that filing this bill was performative, suggesting that I was motivated by personal or political gain rather than genuine concern for the people that I serve. Some have gone so far to say that House Bill 1276 is a waste of time and that nothing will ever be done to truly help consumers. I also heard from people who were agitated and frustrated over bills filed in the past related to construction work in progress, transmission and distribution legislation, and legislation that has been reported to reduce the IURC's authority, with these concerns coming from the Citizens Action Coalition. I want to say that I provided a few handouts in response to those concerns, and I ask that you review those. They're out there on that table. In response to the comments regarding House Bill 1276 this morning, I want to start by saying that I am no different from you. I deal with high energy bills, and I have felt the financial strain of inflation just like you and so many families and individuals in our community. This past year, I even took a part-time job to help supplement my income. So alongside serving as a state representative and caring for my patients in my psychiatric practice, I'm now an adjunct professor at a local college. I also wanted to share something very personal, which I've had permission to do. My best friend lost his home because of a $1,000 CenterPoint energy bill. He was living in the mobile home park off of Mill Road, where his lot rent kept increasing. He was probably paying $600 a month for his lot rent. Eventually, he was forced to make impossible choices between medications, food, his mortgage, and utility bills. No one should ever have to choose between basic needs just to survive. He simply could not make ends meet. Today, he and his wife and their 2 children are living in the basement of a family member's home in Princeton, Indiana. And it breaks my heart that this happened to him through no fault of his own. He's disabled, lives on a fixed income, and despite doing everything he could, he was unable to keep up with the rising cost of inflation. As a result, I knew I had to do something, so I filed House Bill 1276, fully aware that, much like Senator Tome said, it probably wasn't going to receive a hearing. My goal was to plant a seed, to start an important conversation and to build momentum in the hope that it would eventually lead to real positive change. As for claims that this effort was performative, it is important to be clear, bills do not change policy unless someone is willing to introduce them. Labeling this work as performative ignores how policy actually happens. Every major energy reform began as a bill that didn't yet have the votes. House Bill 1276 puts competitive electric choice on the record in statute form with real language, not a press release or a talking point. Even without a hearing, it puts this issue on the table for utilities, gives legislators specific language to reference, and arms supporters with a concrete proposal, not a vague idea. That alone shifts the debate. It creates a policy blueprint others can build on. This bill isn't symbolic. It is fully drafted, detailed, and actionable. Silence guarantees nothing changes. The only true performative move is doing nothing. If no one introduces bills like this, monopolies win by default. Progress requires pressure, and pressure starts with public proposals people can rally around. This is where backing matters. If people believe competition and consumer choice matter, now is the moment to show it. Talk about the bill, defend the concept, ask legislators why consumers don't deserve options. Bills gain traction because people stand behind them. Your voice matters. If you believe consumers deserve real choice and fair pricing, now is the time to use your voice. I ask that you talk about House Bill 1276, support it publicly, stand behind it, and help make competition work for the people at home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative McNamara.
Thank you. I'm Wendy McNamara. I represent House District 76, which is all of Posey County and the west and north side of Vanderburgh County. I'm the chair of Courts and Criminal Code, and I sit on Roads and Transportation. This has been a fast week. Everybody is having conversations about every particular bill. They're coming at us quicker than we can read them. So I'm going to focus on my 4 bills. I have a policy of vulnerability this year, I guess is the term that I'll use. House Bill 1116 was brought to me actually by the ARP locally and local Evansville Police Department. I don't know if you've been in a convenience store lately, but there's something called a Bitcoin ATM. And Bitcoin ATMs exchange cryptocurrency. And this cryptocurrency is generally used, these ATMs are generally used only to scam people. You'll find them in the most vulnerable locations, lower income areas. Typically, if you look across the nation, and the statistics will say 93% of these machines is used for fraud. How the fraud works is somebody will call your home or email you and say that you haven't paid your bill, you missed federal jury duty, you're going to be arrested if you don't do this. And so they get the vulnerable person to go to this ATM, they walk them through it, and they take hundreds of thousands of dollars. So far in Evansville, estimated over $400,000 just in fees have been lost in the last couple of years. Imagine that statewide. What this bill will basically do, the way I wrote it, will regulate the industry, make them become accountable. Most of these machines charge 15 to 18% fees on top of everything. But the biggest part is these people can't get their money back. The money is going to scammers overseas, and hopefully this bill will make it nearly impossible for these to function in the state of Indiana, because there's really no legitimate purpose for them to exist. That one, like I said, was a combination of folks from AARP, the bankers, the credit unions, and Attorney General's office, and the EPD. Another bill that was brought to me locally is, I don't know if you've seen the uptick in animal cruelty, a lot of animal hoarding cases. Local law enforcement is pretty proactive at trying to adhere to these cases, and our prosecutor can't charge. So House Bill 1165 will organize our animal cruelty laws in the state of Indiana, increase the penalties, set a number for hoarding, while letting our ag industry continue as they are, and making sure that responsible breeders continue to be responsible breeders. House Bill 1303 is a CSAM bill that was brought to me by the Indiana State Police. That is reworking Indiana law to really get at people that use child abuse and sexual materials online, so we can target these people that are abusing our children, and really make sure that we can make and hold them accountable for what they do to our kids. And the last bill is House Bill 1040. This was brought to me, well, actually, this one's probably 6 years in the working. If you look at statistics nationwide and even in the state of Indiana, our healthcare workers and our teachers are number one battered, in the top four of being battered in the United States. If you look at our battery list in the state of Indiana, it includes your law enforcement, your firefighters, your judges, the Department of Corrections, things like that. But it doesn't include healthcare workers nor teachers. House Bill 1040 adds educators and healthcare workers to the list of those that can have enhancements if they've been battered. And that sums it up pretty quickly.
Thank you. Representative O'Brien?
Okay, well, hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Tim O'Brien, State Representative. It's a pleasure to be here today, and it's truly an honor to represent Southwest Indiana in the State House alongside my colleagues who are here today. I represent House District 78. It's the east side of Vanderbilt County, the west side of Warwick County, and virtually all of downtown Newburgh. I have the pleasure of serving on House Ways and Means Committee, where I am the chair of the K-12 subcommittee, the largest portion of our state's budget. I am on Government and Regulatory Reform and also on Veterans and Public Safety Committee. I, like many of my colleagues, are focused on promoting good public policy that protects and improves the lives of all Hoosiers. And we've just completed the first week of the second session of the 124th Indiana General Assembly. We are moving fast. We typically would finish around the end of March. We are finishing near the end of February, so things are moving a lot quicker. That means committee deadlines are quicker. That means second reading deadlines are quicker. And, we got to get things heard and scheduled as quick as possible to get them through and to the finish line. A few bills I'm working on, first and foremost, is my EMS bill. It makes EMS, emergency ambulance services, an essential service, putting them on the same level as police and fire, and requires all unserved areas of EMS to be served, so that the Indiana General Assembly can proudly proclaim that every square mile of Indiana is covered by emergency ambulance services. And I'm proud to say that that bill passed out of Veterans and Public Safety this week and is heading to the floor for second reading this upcoming week. Super excited about that. That bill is really important, not just to our community, but to any community, in rural communities especially, where maybe response times take a little bit longer. We need to prioritize that. On your worst day, when you call 911, someone needs to respond. Who agrees with that? When you call 911, you want to know somebody's going to be there. You want to know How fast will they get there? Will they be able to provide BLS, basic life support, or advanced life support? And, the answer to all those questions today is it depends on where you're at. Note that I didn't say it depends on where you live. You could be traveling around the state of Indiana in a rural area, and we got to ensure that there's coverage for every citizen in the state of Indiana, and quite frankly, anybody traveling through the state. So happy to have the support of the Firefighters Union, the Fire Chiefs Association, the Farm Bureau, these big organizations that get that public safety is paramount. Speaking of public safety, second bill I'm working on is House Bill 1250. It is a pro-public safety, victim-centered, common-sense piece of legislation that requires the Department of Corrections to give a heads up to local law enforcement when a serious violent offender is released back into a community. This is a big deal. It's been getting a lot of coverage. And the genesis of this bill really stems from a tragedy that happened in our community last August, where a constituent of mine, a dear friend of mine, was murdered by someone who was released into our community early. And I don't think there was enough notification. We've got to fix that. So this bill, House Bill 1250, gives local law enforcement a 7-day heads up before anytime somebody's released back into community, but also it gives law enforcement a heads up in the community in which the person committed the crime as well. Also has to do with victims' rights and promoting our SAVIN program. It's our statewide automated victim notification system. Now, it doesn't require somebody to sign up for it, but it requires courts and prosecutors and every step along the way to notify victims of the availability of the program so that if they want to take advantage of it, they can. So, we got a lot of support from that. Hopefully, it'll be heard later this month. 21st. The 21st, in fact, since the chair is the co-author of the bill. She's sitting right next to me. She just confirmed that for me. Awesome. And it's received a lot of statewide support, too. So really happy about that. Third, I've got a piece of legislation that is important to me, and it should be important to all of you. It's a resolution recognizing the seriousness of the national debt that we have. Working on that. Also, this past week, our caucus released our legislative priorities that are all about lowering costs and eliminating certain aspects of government and reducing the size of government. And really happy to be the lead co-author on House Bill 1001, which is our housing bill. And I'm proud to hear some of our folks, in our delegation supporting those measures. Housing affordability is a big deal. And this bill, we can dive into it a little bit. I only have a few more seconds left, but 1002 deals with utility costs. 1003 is all about reducing the size of government and making things more efficient, trying to consolidate boards and commissions. And then our House Bill 1004, our final priority, is a bill that deals with education deregulation, which I think is important to a lot of you. So happy to be here, looking forward to the discussion. Thank you so much, and go Hoosiers.
First, I want to say thank you on behalf of all the sponsors for all of the legislators who took time to be here today. This is a great turnout. This event is really the best because, to my knowledge, it's the only one that takes questions from the public at random, and also, frankly, just has the best track record of attendance from legislators. So thank you to everybody who put this together and makes this possible. As we talked about, as I just said, we'll take this at random. First question here is from Barb Delker, Senate Bill 130, which relates to safe firearm storage. We'll start at the other end with Representative O'Brien.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here, and thank all the legislators for being here. My name's Barb Delker, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Southwestern Indiana. I'm the chairperson of the Gun Sense Gun Safety Committee. We go around to community organizations, anybody who asks us, and we do presentations about safe storage. So Senate Bill 130, authored by Andrea Hunley. It requires safe storage of firearms, and if somebody knowingly gets injured, if they're for dependents, and if somebody would get injured as a result of not safe storage, then there's a penalty like a level 5 or level 6 felony. So I just want to support this bill. Any effort to save children, I'm all for it. So that's that's what I want to talk about. And thank you. I know there's so many important issues that you have to discuss, but this is an important issue to us, so thank you.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I appreciate your concern, and I appreciate you coming up today and sharing that concern. It's Senate Bill 130, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in a different chamber right now in the Senate, and I'm not sure if it'll get a hearing. Hopefully, our senators can speak to that, but I appreciate your sentiment around, storing firearms properly. I think that's very important, and look forward to discussing it if it comes across the aisle. Thank you.
And Representative McNamara, I'm going to let Representative Burton cut in if you don't mind. He may have to leave here shortly. I want to make sure he gets a chance to answer. Okay, no, okay, never mind then. My apologies. Go ahead.
It's difficult for us to talk about a Senate bill.
Sure.
So
Okay,
we'll turn it over to the senators.
okay. Unless, do you have any, okay?
I just want to say that, as a person who carries, I understand the importance of keeping these firearms away from children, and I appreciate you asking the question. And when you mentioned that we have so many different things to think about, my favorite part of being a legislator is all the learning that's involved in the different knowledge that I see in the caucus and all the different topics that we have to cover. And sometimes it can seem overwhelming, but it really is, to me, a blessing and an honor to be able to experience that and to be able to manage these things. And I hope that Senator Hunley bill gets a hearing. Thank you.
Senator Becker?
Well, I definitely think that guns ought to be stored appropriately so that children don't, you see this all the time where a child gets a hold of a gun and shoots themselves or somebody else. So I don't know whether Senator Hunley will get a hearing or not, but I do think it's a valid issue. Thank you.
Well, nobody would argue with gun storage being a high priority, and it is an important issue. It really is. I read these stories out of big cities like Indianapolis in particular. We see a lot of crime up there. And it's startling when you read these stories where a 12-year-old packing a gun at 2 in the morning. And you wonder, where's the parents at? Where is their adults in that family? Across the state, it's not so prevalent, but it seems like in some areas of the state, it is where you have this kind of activity. And the guns are stolen a lot of times. So we try to do everything we can legally and lawfully and whatever law can come up with to address something like this. And it is a horrible situation. But also, in this case too, when you talk about safe storage, that falls on the citizens, the parents, the adults, to see to it that those firearms are not accessible to the kids. And you wonder, how is it that an adult would allow a young kid at that age roam the streets of a city like Indianapolis? It's horrible, these stories, and I don't make these stories up. I read these stories, and I'm just appalled that, and there's people up there trying every day to tackle the crime we have and also these incidents concerning guns. But government can only do so much. The people themselves are going to have to take responsibility to see to it that, yeah, the guns are secure, locked up, but also that their kids are in bed and not roaming the streets at those hours. They're going to be facing with people who can cause them more grief and get them in trouble, could even get them hurt. So it's an important issue. There's a lot of things that can come into play on this thing. That's just one component that you're talking about, the safe storage. That's just one component that would help cut down on this shootings and attacks we're having in our state. So thank you for bringing it up.
I think the safety of children is one thing that we can all agree on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
the point I want to make.
Very well made.
Okay. Thank you all. This next topic I know is one that's on a lot of folks' mind. There's no reference to a bill number, but it concerns complaints on energy costs. Susan Cooper. Susan here.
Thank you. I was here last year and asked questions about energy policy, and I want to thank you who spoke earlier, Thoms, Becker, Ledbetter, and of course Burton, for your response to our concerns on energy. I feel like we're being heard a little bit. So I have just a general question. Centerpoint disconnections in our area have doubled this year. We have unhoused people living in garages and families living in cars because of the burden of utility costs. Both working people and small businesses are under duress after only phase one of the last rate hike. There's more in store for us, right? Yet Ed Soliday called our complaints on energy cost hyperbole. What will it take to get the energy committees and members of Congress across the state to take our needs seriously? And would you support a movement to block incumbent energy committee chairs from becoming embedded in that role?
I am going to, what I suggested last time, I'll go ahead and let Representative Burton answer first, just because I know he has to head out.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. Oh man, my mind was moving 1,000 miles an hour as you were talking. Going to the first part of the question about what can we do and the thought process moving forward. I am meeting this coming Wednesday after our hearing on 1002. We're only going to have 1 or 2 committee hearings this year, and it's all going to be focused on 1002. I doubt if the Utilities Committee on the House side hears anything else. How I'm looking at this is when we're charged, when Evansville, Centerpoint Territory is charged $5 million, that looks a lot different than AES in Indianapolis being putting $5 million onto the ratepayers. We have a smaller concentration, and it's my belief that we should be treated differently and under a different threshold than what AES, Indiana, Michigan Power, Duke, and NIPSCO are. Our territory is incredibly small, right, wrong, or indifferent. And so that's going to be my focus when it comes down to amendments on House Bill 1002, is getting down and getting incredibly granular and talking with some experts in the field, not lobbyists, experts in the field to draft up some amendments that go directly to what we're facing. As I kind of hinted to earlier, it's going to take an effort that goes beyond city, county just saying Centerpoint's too high, and then in the state legislature having to call it. We know that we have to get our message, our concern to a broader area, and that is happening, right? That's happening. So we have to continue those efforts, but then also whether it's the county commissioners, mayor, county council, city council in Southwest Indiana, when they're meeting with the governor and other people, they need to be mentioning our utility cost. Small businesses are probably being harmed at an alarming rate the most because no one has $3,000 extra to pay for a bill that's unexpected. That's not good for us, especially for a community that was built on small business. So we have to really build some coalition across the state, but then also trying to get Evansville in a special threshold that doesn't put us in the same category as Duke, AES, and NIPSCO, and Indiana, Michigan Power, simply because of the footprint that we have. That's probably going to be an uphill battle, but they do it when banking's regulated and all types of other industries. And so our wallets are being hijacked right now, and there's nothing we can do about it. And frankly, there's too many families, too many children going to sleep cold and waking up hungry.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. We'll go back now to Senator Thoms.
Well, you know, like I said, I got this bill about the IURC, and we got one of our own hometown folks now on that board. We got Bob died, and Bob had called me and asked if I would put a word in for the governor to see if he could get put on that, and he is on there now, and I did that for him. I'm really glad we got somebody from our area to be a voice on this thing. But I don't know how, effective the IRC will be. I hope they will change. But I think it'd be better if they were elected. And on these utilities, again, I had the people from Houston several years ago come up and met with me. That was the first time I had them up. And I asked them if they would come up, bring a team up here to Evansville, that's their home area where they pretty much have their business, and meet with the people. And they said no, because it always turns into a brouhaha. I said, no, it won't. I'll moderate it, and I guarantee it won't. But would you just listen to the people? You can explain to them how you do business, and then hear their questions and comments. That's all I'm asking. They wouldn't do it. So the last time the guy came up, which was last year, again, I asked him. They won't do this, but I got to tell you, about 2 years ago, I did make a connection with them, and they were agreeable to meet with an organization here in Evansville to do that. They was going to meet with that organization's members and talk about utilities. They wasn't going to open it to the general public, but it was going to be to the people in this organization. And I was really stunned when I got the call that they were going to come up and do this. I couldn't believe they were agreeable to it. I'm really happy about it. The day before that meeting was to take place, that agency, that group here, canceled out on them. I was shocked. I got a call to tell me, they said we was coming up, but they said no, they wanted us to do something different, and we're not doing it. Now, I'm just telling you what happened. I know what I'm talking about. So I went to that meeting the next day, and they admitted, they did cancel for a reason. I'm thinking, we've got to take an opportunity to have these people, if they're willing to come up, I don't care what the circumstances are, have them up here so they can hear your voices. They don't get the calls. In Houston, they don't get the calls I get. They don't hear that voice on the phone of despair because they can no longer afford to keep their house or pay their utility bill, or pay their utility bills or grocery bills or medicine bills. They don't have that money anymore. They don't see the person at the gas station when I'm pumping gas says, hey, Senator, you got to help me out. I got a $600 bill. It doubled from last month. I can't pay it. They don't get those calls. They don't get those encounters. I would like for them to come up here. That's why I wanted the top man to come up here that's making $95,000 a month, just to hear the cries of the folks that are pinned down. They're up against the wall. There's nowhere to go anymore. And I don't know what we can do. I'm hoping some of these bills we're proposing might have an effect, but something's got to break. It just can't go on and on like this. I understand what people are up against. I do.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Becker?
Well, I think it's been said pretty much already, and I certainly support utilities. I know that the governor, too, is very concerned about this, so I would also encourage each and every one of you to email him and let him know that you share the concerns, because he appointed these people. And I am glad, I will say this, that Bob Dyke is on the commission now, because I think Andy Zay is another new member. He's a former caucus member. He just resigned his seat in the Senate to go on to the IURC, so you might want to contact him. But definitely contact the governor's office, because he needs to hear this so that he can continue to back us up when it comes to these utility bills.
Representative Ledbetter?
I think I want to start off by maybe providing a little knowledge about the investor-owned utilities. You can pull up on your phone a map of the Indiana investor-owned utilities, and if you look, you can see that Duke Energy is that big green, okay? CenterPoint is this little blue down here at the bottom. So when the A.B. Brown plant converted from coal to gas, we, the customer, have to pay for that, right? But because we are this little blue speck right here, there's only 150,000 of us to spread that cost across. Duke has all of these people to spread that cost across, okay? So that's why we are feeling the burden so much stronger here than what they would feel in the Duke Energy place. And here, the purple, Indy's starting to feel it now because IP&L has started to convert. So the problem is that we have the energy monopoly, and that's what House Bill 1276 does, is it works to modernize Indiana's energy policy by bringing free market competition without sacrificing reliability or accountability while protecting the consumers. And what this bill would do is it would roll out to put industrial customers, July 1st of 2028, they would come on board first. Commercial customers would come on board January 1st of 29, and then residential customers would come on board July of 2029. That allows the industrial to come in to make sure that the market's safe, that we're not shocking the market, and that when the consumers come on board, it would be safe. The bill will lower costs and will provide accountability. But the only way that any of us can do anything up here to make the change is we have to have you supporting that. We have to have you emailing, we have to have you calling, we have to have you fighting. Okay, that, I can't do it, Senator Thomas can't do it, Senator Becker can't do it. We can't do it without the support of the people. When you don't have the money to fight the lobbyists and the big people, your solution is a power of numbers, okay? I can't do this job without you, so I'm asking for your support once again for House Bill 1276, and you help me to fight for it and get the conversation going and get it moving. Thank you.
Representative McNamara?
To kind of piggyback off of her map that she suggested, and I'm not going to give these as facts. They're more as questions that I have that I can't get answered. Are we still paying for the buffers that were put on top of A.B. Brown plant back in the mid-2010s, 2012s? Are we still paying for those? Are those included in our rate? Are we still paying for the shuttering and the switching of A.B. Brown over to natural gas? That's a yes, okay? Are we still paying for investments that were made in wind and solar that never came to fruition? I think that's a yes. I don't have any concrete answers to these, but I think they're all yes. Are we paying for future investments? I think that's a yes. And on top of all of that, the 150,000 people footprint is paying for all of these suggestions, innovations, and everything along the way, on top of paying for the infrastructure and paying for your actual energy bill. Representative O'Brien and myself, before the latest rate hearing last summer, wrote a letter asking the IURC to decline the rate increase. They chose not to listen to us. I hope that some action is taken, and I hope that Representative Schockweiler's bill will get us where we need to be. And in response to the hyperbole comment, I was actually with him that day and personally chastised him. But to let you know that your local communities are working on your behalf, the Posey County Commissioners wrote a condemnation letter to him for saying that it was hyperbole. So your local representatives were out there fighting. Like she said, continue to be a voice to try to get these costs under control. But as long as we remain just that little small little speck, our voice has to be the biggest around to be heard.
Thank you. Representative O'Brien?
Yeah, I appreciate what Representative McNamara said, and I think that's right. I'm going to piggyback off of that, and I don't think it's a secret. It's probably one of the biggest issues I'm reached out to about its high utility costs. And it's exactly why House Republicans have made that a priority in House Bill 1002. And it's attracting a lot of attention, not just from our caucus, but from the Democrat caucus, because it's going to make some serious changes. And, you know, and to answer one of your concerns about the shutoffs being at an all-time high, that was part of your question. One of the provisions in House Bill 1002 it essentially protect vulnerable Hoosiers by barring utilities from terminating service to customers that qualify for the LIHEAP Energy Assistance Program. So I'm really thrilled about that. And I think that there's some other concerns in there as well, but you know, it's a process that truly modernizes the rate-making process by making a transition to a multi-year rate plans. I think that'll help us as well. But, you know, again, our caucus priorities have been reducing the size of government and making, you know, lowering costs for Hoosier families and, quite frankly, trying to raise your level of discretionary income. And we've done that over the past few years and past few budget cycles. You know, just as we start the new year, the Indiana state income tax has come down once again to 2.95%, putting more dollars back into the pockets of hardworking Hoosiers so that you can, use that towards anything you like. But that's a priority of our caucus. Affordability, obviously, 1002, looking forward to getting that across the finish line. Thank you for your question.
Okay, I just drew 3 more energy questions in a row, so we may return to that, but I want to make sure we address some other topics before we just dwell on one altogether. This next one has been decided, but I know it got so much attention and was such a big deal, I think it makes sense to have any comments that anybody wants to add on it, and that is from Daryl McKnight on redistricting. Daryl, do you have a question or comment? Okay.
Thank you, folks, for being here. My comment is that the state of Indiana already has Republican District 7 to 2. My question is for Senator Becker, I want to thank you for your vote in saying no.
You're welcome.
For Senator Thomas, bah humbug, and a bag of coal. I would like to ask you guys, though, whoever had votes, to explain your votes on why you voted the way you did. Thank you.
Okay, and I think we started with Senator Thomas last time, so we'll start with Representative O'Brien and then work our way down here.
Sure. Yeah, I supported that measure. And there, I think it's important to know that it is incredibly important to have a good relationship with the federal government. When it comes to budget process and many different processes, I'll tell you the facts. We received in 2025 over $23 billion in federal funds. And that goes to a lot of the programs that all of you care about. Quite frankly, obviously the measure didn't move forward. But looking forward to promoting good public policy in the future.
To begin piggyback on what he said, when you think about these relationships, you've got to make sure that they are good. And my vote was in definitely to benefit the long-term interests of Posey County and Vanderburgh County. Because whether you like it or not, we rely on the federal government for a lot of things in our community. And I personally would like to see I-69's bridge finished.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you were talking about
Sir, we've
replanning.
had your question and your comments. We're moving on to Representative Ledbetter now.
Okay, so redistricting is one of the most serious responsibilities we have as a legislator because it directly affects representation and trust in our democracy. Personally, I believe strongly that every Hoosier deserves meaningful representation. And I approached the bill with that principle in mind. Initially, I was a no on the bill. I was a hard no on the bill. Personally, still today, I am a no on the bill. But I was elected to represent the people of my district. My district is 76% Republican. So after listening to my constituents, it was clear that they wanted me to support the legislation. In a representative democracy, that matters. That matters. My vote reflects the responsibility of my constituents, not what I want. Okay, my goal is to always approach these decisions with fairness and openness. Once again, like I said, personally, I was a no on the bill, but I had to represent the people in my district. I have none of Vanderburgh County. I am rural. My largest city is Boonville, 7,000 people. I am very rural, 76% pro-Trump in my district. I had to represent my people. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Becker.
Well, let me explain that I try to represent my people when I hear from them, and I heard from them. I had over 1,000 letters, emails, postcards in opposition to redistricting, and I voted accordingly. Thank you.
Senator Thomas.
Yes, sir. we got a lot of calls during that time, and I was here in terms of, are you going to vote with your constituents or with Trump? That's how it was said, not President Trump, but Trump. So I had a question. Define constituents. Is it constituents who want to vote no, are the ones that want me to vote yes? And there was people that wanted a yes vote too. No votes were not the only ones that was speaking their voice on this thing. I wasn't too fond of the whole idea, but I understand why Trump was wanting to do this. Now, we have about 6 states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, Hawaii, and Delaware, have always had gerrymandered to the point where there are no Republican representatives in any of those states for 30-some years. Nobody whispered a thing about it. Nobody said a word about it. You know, and I thought that was interesting. But it's legal. Now, the courts ruled in 2014 with the Voters' Rights Act that states cannot gerrymander based on race. But the federal courts ruled that the Supreme Court ruled that no federal courts has jurisdictions on partisan gerrymandering. That's the law. That's what they ruled. Said the courts in those states or the state themselves, their legislature, can make the determination whether to allow gerrymandering. That's the law, folks. That's the way it is. That's the way the law is. Now, I know what Steve's trying to do. Like I said, and I had 3 interviews by the media before this thing even got warm, much less hot. And I told the Channel 25, I think was one of the reporters, a State House reporter, and a New York Times reporter. I told them why I thought it was a bad idea, but I never said anything about my vote. Only my opinion. Because they asked, what's my thoughts? I said, I'll give you my opinion. And we all know what opinions are worth. Up until it got to the point where it was going to the floor, then I told the governor, I told our caucus, and I also went to the floor on the 18th of November, Organization Day, and told everybody in the state that was watching this stream live and all the people in the Senate chambers, I'm voting yes. I'm standing with our president and our commander-in-chief. You can throw all the red flags up you want, folks, but I'm telling you what, I know the red flags right here voted for their president, Biden, and probably Obama, and probably Clinton. You have that right. That's your president. This is the gentleman I'm supporting for the things he's doing for our country. Our gas prices are down, our food prices are coming down. So that's why I'm going with this man. Things weren't so good a few years ago. So that's why, Darrell, I'm talking to Darrell here. Darrell, you asked the question. You're entitled to the answer. That's my answer, sir. Okay, and thank you for the question, by the way. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you, Senator Thoms. Our next one is from, I hope I pronounced this right, Steve Herm, who's asking about criminal sentencing reform. Steve.
Good morning, I'm Steve Herm. I'm from the west side of Evansville, District, Representative McNamara's district. People should be able to determine what their energy bill is. You ought to be able to go out to your meter, read your meter, and be able to determine what your bill is going to be. When I got my first rate increase in July, I asked a simple question of the person on the helpline from CenterPoint. What was my bill? What is it now? They couldn't answer. They could not answer. Our bills are such that there are multiple layers upon layers upon layers of charges. Some of these charges are fixed, some of them vary. I asked at a different meeting, how often these things change? They can change quarterly. So the customers, me and you and everybody else who pays for electric rates, we don't know what our bill is going to be. We have no way of determining it. Also, we are totally at the mercy of CenterPoint to get this right. We don't know. We don't know if our bill is correct or not. And again, I've contacted CenterPoint Energy, I've contacted the IURC, I've contacted my representatives and the people that are up here too to try to get some answers on this point, and I've been met with silence. So again, what we're all facing is this lack of information. Now, finally, at a community meeting in Mount Vernon, I found out the answer to this question. What was my bill?
Okay, thank
What
you,
is my
sir.
bill
Your time is
now?
up, and I will say, if this happens again, I mean, we are very careful on the topics that we're asking. You indicated on the sheet that you were going to ask about criminal sentencing reform?
Yes.
Okay, that's not what you asked about, so.
Let me talk real quick
No,
on
no,
that.
no, 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 that's
If
not
we
how
can
this
talk
works.
about criminal
No.
sentencing, we can talk about this.
You can sit down, you've had your minute and a half. If any legislators want to talk about criminal sentencing reform, they can. I can't remember who, did you finish up last time, Senator Thomas? So you can start off if you
I
want to
did.
address that topic.
So I'm done.
What's that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, if you want to talk about criminal sentencing reform, go for it.
I thought you were talking about the veteran thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the question is. I haven't heard what.
Well, he indicated he was going to ask about criminal sentencing reform, so I wanted to give everybody up here a chance to address that
I will.
topic if you want, if you have. No, sir, you've had your minute and a half and you went off topic, so.
Unless he specifically tells me what
Okay.
it's after, I can't answer.
Let's just move on then to another one, which I think is a good one from a procedural standpoint that a lot of
Sorry.
people ask about. Glenn Kissel, who's asking, who decides which bills are heard in committee? I think this is important so everybody understands how this process works because it's not a free-for-all for these legislators.
Thank you very much. So my question is, who decides which bills are heard in committee? Is it solely the discretion of the chairman of the committee? Can the majority of the committee force the hearing on a bill? Can the majority of the majority caucus force the hearing of the bill? Or should the rules be changed about how a bill is heard?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, thanks, Glenn. The way it works on the Senate side, and probably the House too, you file a bill, the bills will go to the pro tem, and you can, on your filing form, request where you want the bill to go, what committee. But the pro tem has ultimate choice on that if he sees it should go to another committee instead of the one you've selected, and he will explain it to you if you want to go in and talk with him about it. So that's how the bill may wind up at a committee. Now, the chairmans are given almost unlimited power on their committees, how they want to run them, what bills they want to hear. It's the chairman of the committee that can determine whether they want to hear these bills or not. It's pretty much up to them. So that's how it is, and I know, like I said, on my IURC bill, I'm pretty sure it's not going to get a hearing. As a chairman myself, I try to hear all the bills I can possibly hear. The Veterans Committee, we don't get a great deal of bills like Education Bill Committee might, but I think every bill that a legislator submits is important to somebody, either to that legislator or to the people that legislator represents. I was told one time that chairmen are the watchdogs, or the gatekeepers, the gatekeepers of our caucus. And I'm thinking, how is that? I never even heard of such a term like that. That sounds like something you'd heard from Eastern Germany. We are the gatekeepers. I just want people to know, and when I brought this up in a meeting, I was told, you know, Senator, that's the way it is, and as the gatekeepers, and I'm thinking, well, you know, the person that submitted that bill, it was important to them. It might not be to you, but it was to them, or to their people that they represent. I understand that the broad authority, but I guess that's how it was always done. It's that way now. Yet you talk about whether changing it. I don't even know if that could be done, to be honest with you. But I think for the most part, the chairmen are, they do try to hear all the bills they can. Some of them are just just overpowered by so many bills coming into their committees, and they just can't hear them all. Physically cannot hear them all, and I get it. But that's the way it works. You start with your filing, you start with where you want the bill to go, there's a leadership in there that will decide okay or not, and then the chairman themselves is with the last stop whether the bill's going to make it or not and get a hearing. So that's just how it is. And you know, it's not the worst scenario, but it's, you know, maybe it could be tweaked, I don't know, but that's the way it is.
That's not exactly how it is. And I know that because I had a bill last year that wasn't heard because the Senate pro tem went to the chairman and said, please don't hear that bill.
But that was the pro tem, yeah. I mean, that's.
And he's leadership, I mean, he's the boss, so to speak. So we can try to get around him, but you're not going to. So you can try to exert influence and get people to talk to him, and that's what I tried to do. But it had to do with Eli Lilly. And Eli Lilly did not want this bill to be heard because they do experiments on dogs, on animals, and they didn't really want this issue to be out there because they didn't want the public to know or even have a inkling about what they do as far as, you know, I understand that. Eli Lilly is a big employer in our state, and but I really felt like the bill should have been heard, but it wasn't. So that's just, that's another part of the equation.
But that's the link that makes all that decision. That's the link how it works.
Representative Ledbetter?
So I'm going to let Representative McNamara as a chair, when she speaks, tell you how the process actually works. And this is, in my mind, how it happens, is that chair has the majority of the discretion. And the only way that you can get beyond the chair is if the Speaker of the House tells the chair that they need to hear the bill, or you can
Right.
somehow exert your influence over the governor. The other ways that we see influence being exerted is from big lobbyists like Eli Lilly. So there's a lot of power behind dollars pushing that. That's why it's so important for the power of the people to become behind somebody like me who doesn't have the power of the lobbyist or a discretion of a chair. I have faced this since I've been in session with my, this year it's House Bill 1129. It's an APRN bill, and it's a collaborative practice agreement between nurse practitioners and physicians. And the chair of the House, the Public Health Committee is a physician, and the Indiana State Medical Association is against ending that. And the Behavioral Health Commission has recommended it. The only no vote was a physician. There's been a lot of push behind it. And what is so crazy about it is I know I could probably do it on a second reading amendment. I know that I've got enough support from our caucus to do that. But if I did that and I went against my caucus, and because I'm a Republican, and I would take the votes of the Democrats to help me win the vote over what the majority of my caucus would want, I would probably be ostracized from my group for a year or two. So I haven't made that move to do that. That would be a power move on my part. Those are the things I have to sit and think about. So that's kind of how those things move, and it is very frustrating. And you know, what things get shut down. And once again, like I said, I think I answered everything that I had on here. Should the rules be changed? Yes. How should they be changed? I don't know, but I think the rules should be changed. Thank you.
As the resident chair here, Courts and Criminal Code tends not to be very partisan. A lot of the bills that come through my committee are bipartisan support. She gave you the politics behind the politics. Jim gave you a good explanation. For me, my world in Courts and Criminal Code is going to be different from public health, which is going to be different from public policy, which is going to be different from Ways and Means. In my committee, it's probably, depending on the year, I get the second most bills assigned to it. Some years I might be third most, and that would be after what happens and goes through Ways and Means. So I can't possibly humanly hear all those. So like this year, I can probably hear about 15 bills. I already have 50 assigned to my committee. What happens when that happens? I sit and I look, what are the implications of this bill? What is this bill actually trying to do? Has the author actually done their work behind this bill? Some people throw up ideas but don't even talk to any interested parties. And if you haven't done your groundwork as a legislator to get you to that point, I don't want to do all the work for you. When I get done here today, I'm going to work on 3 bills. One of them is mine and 2 of them are not, to get them prepared to be heard next Wednesday. I shouldn't have to do more work on your bill than you do. So that goes into it as well. You look at, in my case, and I can't say this is true for the way that the other committees operate, but my vice chair is always sitting there with me. We are going over every bill, talking about yes, no, maybe, what has to go into fixing this bill. And then just this week, this is the first time I've done it, the majority of my members, we had to work on a bill after committee. I said, if you want to stick around and we can look through the bills for the next couple weeks and you can give me your thoughts. I don't think any other chair does that. I just happened to do that this year, but I'm giving my committee members their opportunity to put their voice in and be heard and their 2 cents. Plus, they're usually the ones that I tell they have to fix the problems in the bills that come my way. So there have been proposals to change the committee structure. I don't know how you do that with the volume that you get. There are some very good ideas that don't work the way they're written. And a lot of times it takes a lot of time to fix them because in concept, there could be the best idea in the world, but in practice, it could be very difficult to go through with it. And then we also keep the really bad ideas from getting out there, and because some people just post up bills to do that. So hopefully that answers your question. And
Thank you. And Representative O'Brien, if you want.
Yeah, I think you've been given a very good overview so far, but I want to go back a little bit. I don't think the process starts on day one. I think the process starts with you. Typically, you know, a lot of the bills that I get, or I'm working on with constituents and people in the community, and I'm working on building a coalition. I know a lot of us do this where, you know, we're working on bills for years before they get a hearing. And I think it's very important to note that, Glenn, because I know we've had this conversation, but it takes time. Rome was not built in a day, and sometimes you got to get it in such a good spot where it's ready for prime time, where it's ready for Chairman McNamara to actually bring it to discussion. And you only have so much time, too. Like I said, I mean, we're going to be done. We're going to sine die, finish the session by the end of February, which means we as a House have to finish all of our bills by the end of January. And we don't have many many committee meetings left. I mean, we probably have, most committees will meet 2 more times, with the exception of mine, Ways and Means, the committee that hears the most bills. Second would be Wendy's this year. And that doesn't even include the recommits. So after they go through a committee process, that starts again if they have any kind of fiscal analysis, they come to Ways and Means. And then, you know, so a lot of what you've heard so far is accurate, but when it comes to, you know, the committee having some say, Ways and Means, we do. We have a pre-committee, and we'll go through some of the bills and, you know, decide if we like this or not, or, you know, sometimes bills get put together. You'll see, you know, bills, you know, merged together, or amended together. But, you know, quite frankly, I think the legislators that are most successful in getting their bills heard are the ones that are truly working on them with as many, you know, industry experts as they possibly can. You know, walk through, meet with as many people as you possibly can, agency heads if it has to deal with an agency. You know, seek the advice of your chairman that your bill is assigned to. And again, it all goes back to you. You guys help us get bills heard. When you reach out to your lawmakers and you reach out to the committee chair, you reach out to the leadership, you reach out to anybody. You know, people read these emails, people take note of it, and they respond. And you know what? If you don't get it heard in a short session, there's always the next session. We come back every single year. So I like the process. I think it does weed out some of the nonsense. But it's a long process, right? You know, we work really hard on our legislation. It's not just given to you. You've got to, you know, spend a lot of time on it. You know, the quick process for you, it's read first reading on the floor, then it gets assigned to a committee. Then you have to, you know, basically get with the committee leadership and advocate on behalf of your bill to secure a hearing. And then you've got to build a coalition and get them there to testify in support of your bill. And then, you know, once you get the majority of the support from the committee, it makes it to second reading on the floor. And guess what? Now that's the amendment process. You've got to defend your bill from bad amendments, or, you know what, maybe there's somebody in the chamber, Democrat, Republican, that, you know, has a better idea that makes your bill a little better, and maybe you're gonna defend that amendment. And then, you know, sometimes that takes forever. I've seen some of our lawmakers up here on the floor defend their bill for hours on the floor. or maybe no amendments. And then, after that, guess what? Third and final reading. Then you have to present your bill and debate the bill with anybody and everybody on the floor, and then ultimately have a vote on final passage. And guess what? It's not over. It goes to the other chamber and starts the entire process over. So there's tons of checks and balances. I thank you for letting me go over. I think it was important to at least have a little bit
My
of
apologies. Yeah,
the knowledge there.
missed
but-
that.
yeah.
We got Representative Burton back. I think it's especially interesting to hear from a member of the minority party as well how this happens. Who decides what bills are heard?
Yeah, it sucks being the minority, let me tell you. I can have the greatest ideas in the world, but those ideas won't see the light of day. So I got to find the colleague across the aisle to carry a lot of those for them. It's just the reality of what it is. When the Democrats take control one day, I'll remember this and won't be as mean. But no, in all seriousness, this has been the greatest spirit of bipartisanship. Like I could not have asked for a better environment to learn. Though some of you will probably cringe when I say this, my mentor and just the person I want to be like 30 years from now is Chairman Soliday. Not from having not from the legislative standpoint, but just him as a personality, the way that he conducts himself and that sort of thing. And so he is certainly one of my heroes in the legislature.
We're all cringing.
Yeah, yeah, but no, it's been a great learning space. But again, just trying to do the right thing for people and try to take the partisanship out of it and just do the right thing for Hoosiers, because we're all experiencing the same thing, whether you live in Evansville, Newburgh, Posey County, or even in Lake County. Like, there are some things that just need to be addressed, and I like the chess game that comes with trying to get bills heard and advocate for things via amendments, so.
Thank you. Next question we have from Rita Taylor. I think this is a House Bill 1423 on school. Okay.
Now the representative is back, I'd like for him to explain his vote on redistricting.
I voted against it. We do it every 10 years. That's my thing. I mean, these be the maps in 32, I'd probably vote against it, but then I wouldn't argue for the sake of doing something abnormally.
Thank you. Barton Heath, if you want to come up, your question concerns minimum wage and the tobacco tax.
Thank you. Since 1999, the Health Department receives $130 million average funding the Tobacco Master Settlement. This is the payment for smokers suffering deaths and prevention programs. In 2014, our state lost $63 million of that cash for not doing their job. Our state continually underfunds prevention, spending a pitiful 4% while defining it as 12%. It's a percentage of a percentage. Then funding $85 million to construction. Smokers are 72% of the working class, a rainbow coalition of races. A $7 minimum wage doesn't serve as a rising tide that floats all boats. That tide is prevented by those that live off our taxes. 15 years of zero minimum wage increases. In the same period, our representatives gave themselves thousands. The state executive branch almost doubled their wages, then fired thousands of workers, tripled smokers' taxes, pushing us close to center point disconnection. And our state actively oppresses minimum wages through the use of IC 22-2-2-10.5, where they prevent our mayors and local representatives from even passing minimum wage legislation.
Thank you, Barton. We started last time with Senator Thompson, so we'll start with Representative O'Brien this time.
Okay, I think I'm going to address your cigarette tax question. So as you recall, at the end of the last budget session, we had a $2.4 billion shortfall that we had to account for in the last 7 days before we, passed our budget and Sonny died. And so we either had to cut or raise some revenue, and one of the ways to balance our budget is we raised the cigarette tax to $3 per pack, a $2 cigarette tax increase. And I'm proud of that. I was proud to support that, and I just pulled up some data. Cigarette use dropped by about 40% in the first 3 months after that tax went into effect. So that's a big deal. And we also, it helped us raise some revenue, but I think that it's incredibly important. I also carried a cancer bill last year, pediatric cancer bill and breast cancer bill, and trying to find funding for supporting these type of, research treatment programs and grants, all things that are, affected by, cigarette use. As far as your minimum wage question, I don't know if we have any legislation this year that addresses that. But I know that other states have obviously started to do this. I'm not entirely sure I would be supportive of addressing that this year. I'm more of a free market, let the market take care of that kind of guy, but I appreciate your question.
Okay. Representative McNamara.
I hear the dinging.
That was, I don't know, that may have been a phone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. To answer your first question about the tax on cigarettes, I've supported that. I think that if it's too high of a cost to defer, and if he's accurate with his 40% declining the opportunity to smoke again. My dad was a smoker. Up until age 16, he smoked in the house, and I was sick, had strep throat nearly all the time, and inhaling that secondhand smoke, I'm surprised I can breathe healthily today. Had a major sickness, which the doctor looked at my dad and said, if you want to kill your daughter, keep smoking in the house. So anytime it comes to smoking, it triggers me in a way that I want to do whatever we can to alleviate that. But I think it compounds with the bigger problem that's healthcare in general. I believe you said the word proactive. Our healthcare system is completely reactive in a lot of regards, and treatment of cancers are reactive. Treatments of smoking cancers are reactive. You would have to really shift the focus of the industry to being a more proactive. I think taxes like these kind of get you there in a way, because if you can put it out of reach and force them to quit, that proactively gets them to stop that smoking. I don't know if you follow my logic, but they, I don't know how else we would get people to incentivize them to quit if it just was something that was unaffordable. As far as the minimum wage, again, I don't know if there's any legislation on it this year. Typically, people will respond saying minimum wage wasn't intended to be a living wage. But I will be honest with you, when I was in college, I could do a part-time job and help pay for college. That is not the case today. Really, your only way to get to college, and most jobs require at least a 2-year degree, like an associate's degree or apprenticeship or something like that. Those cost money. And it used to be you could have a part-time job and pay for those things. That just isn't the case today. So.
Representative Ledbetter.
Well, as it relates to the cigarette tax, I believe the reason why we did that is because we were facing raising, Medicaid is at risk of taking over our budget in the state. The dollars just keep increasing what we're spending on Medicaid. It's gonna overtake education and everything else that we have in terms of state dollars. And because cigarettes affect one's health, the way to try to prevent the cost of increasing Medicaid was to increase the cigarette tax. Not to give Representative O'Brien a hard time, I don't think we've had any reduction in smoking. I think people are just going over to Kentucky to buy their cigarettes. And as it relates to minimum wage, I think when COVID came along, we started seeing people get paid $10 an hour. We started seeing people get paid $15 an hour to work at McDonald's. I think the market has taken care of that. I think that's why we haven't seen the federal government adjust the minimum wage, because everybody's earning above minimum wage at this time. So I don't know that's even a necessity anymore. And because I mean, you see McDonald's signs all the time. People are making more money because they've been pushed to make more money because nobody's gonna work for minimum wage anymore. People refuse to do that. I think that's all that I have.
My answer is going to be a little bit of a rogue one, but hear me out. Cigarette tax, yes, it was part of it. I ended up not voting for the budget, so I guess I didn't vote for the increase in cigarette tax. But my question has been, why are we stopping at cigarettes? If we're going to increase cigarettes, we need to increase alcohol, and we need to increase soda as well if we're going to put a tax on things. Especially if the state is saying they want to make our Indiana healthy again, right? Then we need to go all in and make sure that our health is taking priority. Then I'm going to tie that into the Representative Ledbetter mentioned Medicaid. Medicaid spending in the state of Indiana is 57 cents on the dollar. If I go across the bridge to Kentucky, it's 81 cents on the dollar. And so where Indiana is situated right now is less than Kentucky, less than Illinois, less than Michigan, less than Ohio. And that has to be addressed in some form or fashion. And the reason I mention that is because with that being the case, that then puts our hospitals in a situation that then impacts our rural hospitals. And if our rural hospitals end up closing, where are they going to come? They're going to come to Evansville, which means that our already long ER wait times are going to be even longer, which means that things are just going to compound. And where we are right now, people aren't going and setting up doctor's appointments because they got to continue to go to work because CenterPoint is so high. They're waiting until they're going to the emergency room. And so there's already long times, there's always already a long wait time. And so things are just compounding and people are waiting until they're very, very sick to then go to the ER, which then puts so much strain on our hospitals that makes it so impossible. And now we see nurses are getting out as fast as they can out of Indiana. And that can't be the reality. At the same time, you see hospitals like Deaconess who are now expanding their services in Kentucky. That's because their Medicaid reimbursement rate is 81 cents on the dollar as opposed to our 57 cents. So all these things come into play, and we really have to have a long-term strategy. If we're going to make sure that our Hoosiers are healthy, we have to have a long-term plan, and right now we don't. And I think this needs to be really addressed at a federal level, but the state certainly has to do more to make sure that that 57 cents on the dollar is more in line with at least our neighboring states, but that also isn't the end-all, be-all. We have to really look at healthcare and how we're providing our care, not only for our young, but for those who are working and our elderly. We have to do something more than what we are, and I'll be completely honest with you. I've tried to stay far as possible as I could away from healthcare because it's so complex. There's all these different things that go into it, but the reality of it is the hard questions aren't being asked, and we have to come to some solution. And so I'm working with our hospital, specifically here in Evansville, because the worse that our healthcare system is, the more communities like Evansville are going to suffer.
Thank you. Senator Becker?
I just want to say that what we found last year, the last week of session, when they looked at the revenue, Indiana was $2 billion in the hole. That's the reason why they raised the cigarette tax. I suggested that if you're going to do that, you ought to raise the tax on alcohol. We haven't raised the tax on alcohol in years. And there were several people in my caucus who wanted to do that, but it didn't happen. I don't know what hold they had. But part of that tobacco tax goes into helping the Healthy Indiana program, which is for low-income working people to have health insurance. And so that was the other reason, but also the Medicaid and Representative's right that, Indiana needs to raise the Medicaid reimbursement to hospitals, and they have refused to do that for years. Because as he said, we're paying only 57 cents on the dollar and Kentucky's paying 87 cents on the dollar. That still doesn't offset the cost, but it certainly goes a lot farther along to do that. So I just wanted to sort of explain some of that to you as well.
Senator Thomas?
Well, almost everything's been said, and it's all good points, and I appreciate it. The dental association, too, the dentists are not getting reimbursed for Medicaid dental work, and it's a serious issue, too. And Alex, I like what you said about, taxing the alcohol and things like that. Soda pops, well, now you're talking about my skis and double colas. But, the minimum wage, back in the 2020, 2021, 2022, I seen these signs on these fast food restaurants as offering $15 an hour. I mean, the market was kind of taking care of itself as far as those wages going up. I'm like everybody else, I haven't seen anything approaching the minimum wage here in Indiana, but that was something, how quickly those wages came up. And so it was significant too, by the way. And I don't know what we'll do here in Indiana on that, but I gotta say, I'm not a smoker, but there's a lot of people, not as many as there used to be. We don't see as many people walking the sidewalks with a cigarette in their mouth anymore and stuff. But, there are some parts of our society, especially I think working class folks that work hard for the money. At the end of a week, they like to have enough money to buy their smokes, maybe a six-pack of beer and a carton of cigarettes and a pound of bologna. Them are the things that are their treats that they like to have. And that we're going to tax an item, a consumer item, on just one class of citizens, I don't think that's quite fair. Now, we're talking about, raising taxes on alcohol and stuff. Well, that might be. But what if they start taxing the restaurants where many of us go to and enjoy our meals, and maybe all the meals don't meet the health standards that other people think we should have, and then we start taxing them and raising the price on that meal that you purchase. The idea of raising taxes just doesn't sit well with me, folks. I'm just not happy about raising taxes on people. I understand the programs that try to discourage smoking, and that's great. That's wonderful, but aren't we getting tapped enough? Isn't the utilities taken care of? That done? I'm just not happy about raising taxes on any one sector of society and spread their money to everybody else. It's just not right. So we'll see what happens. I think the fact that smoking is losing its interest because generations coming up, they're not interested in smoking. There's a push for smoking marijuana, but that's another issue. But anyway, I think everything but was said here was well put, and we'll just see what the future holds for us on that.
Thank you. I did a poor job of planning the final comments in terms of time because we've got just about 5 minutes left. So I think we may have to cut our final comments down to about a minute or a minute and a half, if that's okay. I will point out we did get quite a bit of additional energy questions, so obviously you can use it how you want. You may want to touch upon this. I'll note we got one from Christopher Norick with concerns over a House Bill 1002, doesn't believe it fixes anything on utility affordability, and Brittany Cox has concerns with House Bill 1276 on utility competition. Again, take it whatever direction you want, but just know we did get a lot of questions on energy as well. Senator Toms, if you want to start off with our ending here, and again, sorry to, a minute and a half would be good.
Okay, thank you.
Or a minute if you want.
Or 2 minutes, he said.
No.
Okay. I want to mention, I am on the Local Government Committee, Natural Resource Committee, Agriculture Committee. I'm the ranking majority member on Homeland Security and Transportation, and also I'm the chairman of the Veterans Affairs and Military Committee. I enjoy all those committees that I serve on. One thing that has really been a thorn in my side, have you ever had to call one of our state agencies for any help? Show of hands, anybody? Oh, I know there's more than that. I'm telling you, folks, these committees are unresponsible. My policy since I took office in 2011 was I want every email, every phone call, every voicemail, every handwritten letter, and every text message come to me. I want to talk to the people. I want to answer them directly. If I get an email and I really want to talk to them, I'll ask for their number and I'll give them mine. These folks, I get calls now from all over the state and even other states now. People are calling for help at these agencies, whether it's FSSA, DCS, Bureau of Motor Vehicles, Department of Revenue. You can't get through. You cannot get through. Nobody answers the phone. Nobody returns calls. I stand on that. I had a meeting with the governor early last year about these agencies. I'm going to do a resolution. I tried a bill that didn't get through. I wanted a bill that would have an outside independent source do an audit on all of our agencies. Not the State Board of Accounts. That's an agency in itself. That's like cousins checking on cousins. I want somebody who's not in the circle. For the people that can get respect and get an answer. You dial that number, it goes this way. Am I right? Please listen to the following menu because it recently changed. Stop the brakes. It's been that way for 30 years, folks. This message may be recorded for training services. Well, if it's being monitored, why don't they pick the call up, right? I'm working on trying to get something shook up in these agencies. They need to take your calls. I don't want automation. I want somebody answering my phone. I want it to be a human voice.
Thank
Right?
you, Senator.
Yes.
Senator Becker.
Thank you.
Thank you for. Yeah,
Well, maybe they should have been fired. Yes, they should have been fired. I can just find a street smart person that can do their job for a lot less money and a better job of it. I'm just telling you. Put me
Okay.
on record for it. Huh?
Thank you. I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here today and continue to share with us your concerns, your support for certain bills and legislation, because it helps us when we go to leadership and say, hey, I've had 100 emails on this issue. And so I just want to say thank you for your input. As always, continue to provide that input with us as well. So again, thank you.
Representative Burton.
Thank you all so much for coming. I really enjoy coming on Saturdays during the legislative session to give an update and really think through some things that are happening at the State House. Again, my apologies for having to step out for a little while. That won't happen again. As Senator Thomas was talking, he made me realize, so I filed a bill. Hopefully it'll go to Family and Children here next week. And it has to do with a DCS ombudsman, advocate, right? Someone who has the ability and responsibility to hear concerns on behalf of not only state agency, but DCS. DCS has a lot of work to do in cleaning itself up, and I'm working very closely with them. Adam Corrupton, the executive director, actually taught at Rice High School for a couple of years before going on to law school and then now being in his role at DCS. And so he's been open to my concerns, thoughts, and just ideas. One of the things I'm working to do is actually bring resources to encourage and better promote youth development using state dollars. Evansville does not do a good job of leveraging state resources into our community to do a whole lot of good. The fact of the matter is our youth need a lot of help. Not that they're doing anything incredibly wrong, it's just the society. They need some help. And there are state dollars out there that find their way to Elkhart and cities that are smaller than Evansville. We're the third largest city in the state, and too often we get treated like we're the 10th. And so the goal is to get resources here. So I did want to share that as a bill, and thank you again.
Representative Ledbetter.
Yes, well, thank you, everybody, for being here. I also want to talk about, I filed a House Bill 1059. It's a commercial advertising on school buses with the cutback in property tax. This would be a modest revenue, but it's a very protective and prescriptive, and it only allows black and white advertising on the back of the school bus, not on the sides. It would be limited, no political advertising, no tobacco, no alcohol, no gambling, or any sexually explicit content. And it would be local control. The school boards would be able to vote on whether or not they wanted to do that and where they wanted that money to go. So it would be up to local school boards to do that. So that was an option. And then I also filed House Bill 1139, assessment of property, which came to me from Farm Bureau as concerns about farmers being, their property assessments being inconsistent in how they're being classified, and helping them to work on that as well. And then I also filed House Bill 1120, which is Stranded Assets Bill, and that bill is a utility bill as well, but it's much more prescriptive and wound down just to say that we shouldn't have to pay if AB Brown closed the coal plant, that we shouldn't have to continue to pay for the closure of that coal plant, and that's what that bill does. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. Appreciate everybody's questions, input, ideas. I was thinking about as Jim was talking, because the whole agency thing gets me a little fired up too, not quite as much as him, but
15 years ago.
there's also an issue when we pass a law as a legislative body and we ask an agency to make a rule. Several of these agencies choose to ignore our law. So then the question becomes, who actually is in charge here? Is it us who are making the laws on the behalf of you? Or is it these agencies that are going to choose to look at whatever rule that they've been designated to put and put forth? I won't tell you which agency, but I was told this week that we had promulgated a rule to them for them to do. They're choosing to outwardly ignore the law that we passed last year. That just burns me, because it's a particular issue that would be of benefit to all Hoosiers, that they're choosing to ignore. I also sit on Roads and Transportation, and this year, this week was particularly emotional. I would say both my committees are emotional committees because they always impact people. But there were a lot of road namings that went out this particular committee hearing. And one of the road naming resolutions was for Heather Glenn, the police officer who was shot and killed at the hospital in Tell City. They're going to name the road in front of the hospital in her honor. So just thought I'd let you know that.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your weekend to be a part of something special and being part of the process. And I want to thank Josh for being a moderator. Let's hear it for Josh. Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to law enforcement for being here. How about for the law enforcement? Okay, so we're going to move pretty quick. If there's, stay involved. We talked about constituent services, and if you have trouble with an agency, reach out to me, reach out to a lawmaker. They'll help intervene. Like I said, thank you all for being here, and looking forward to the rest of the session. Take care.
As a reminder, the next event is February 14th. Thank you all.